I'm speaking to Sylvain Corbeil, one half of the Meta Films company in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We are at the 2024 Marrakech International Film Festival. You're here with a very special project. It's Matthew Rankin's second feature film that premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. And we're going to have a little bit of fun today because I think it says a lot about your choices as a producer, but also your artistic sensibility, what you gravitate towards. I want to say that your career, just if we look at the filmography, there's a lot of hits. There's a lot of hedged bets and where you get the bets right. And this is another case of that. But in the case of Matthew, he comes from a very special ecosystem. If I were to look at all your filmmakers, he really is an anomaly. And so there perhaps, just from the get-go, you knew Matthew through his short film cinema. Also potentially you might have been amongst the producers interested in his first film. So how did that first conversation look like where Matthew came to you or you went to Matthew in some like soiree or something? Like how did those two worlds collide and how did that first pitch look like to you? Because what we see on screen, it's a madcap, it's a madhouse, there's a lot of ideas. The translation ends up being amazing, but it could have been a shit show, to be frank. That's Matthew. So what did that first conversation look like?
Well, the first conversation, we have to understand that this project started 12 years ago. So that's a key to your, the global answer. And the development processes are rarely like the same. They're non-linear. There's pauses, there's back and forths, there's evolution. So I have to say the project really like got together mostly after pandemic.
Yeah.
But we started discussing this project 12 years ago.
That's crazy.
I remember, signing the contract 2012. And at that time, I was just like, I had done like one or maybe two feature films, that's all. We had done Nuit numéro 1,
yes,
Anémone,
yes.
And, Laurenti by Mathieu Lavoie and Mathieu Denis and Simon Lavoie. And that was it. So at that time, I can't, because it's so long also, I can't remember like who came first. I think Matthew came first, I'm not sure. But anyhow, we knew each other, because Montreal is not that much.
It's a small
ecosystem,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And and then when you're a cinephile, you're interested in like what's everyone's doing. And I thought Matthew was a brilliant filmmaker. I still think he is. And at that time, we have to know that it's a second feature, but he's done so many shorts before.
Yeah.
He's got a body of work that is very impressive and that is unique. And to be honest, I'm not drawn by any subjects or any styles in particular. I'm just looking for brilliant minds, for creators that bring something new on the table in cinema. Because I know it's very competitive, and I think it's a good way, it's a good end to sort of like come up with original, strong vision projects that sort of like that will elevate cinema, and this is how we get our tickets, And as a cinephile, those are the films that I want to see, because even before then, I was producing films. I was watching films.
Yeah.
So we all come from this.
Yeah.
We watch films, we're impressed, we're moved, and then once you're in the position of like taking decisions, you project yourself doing something, which is very hard. Producing, it's years, like I told you, 12 years. And you have to have lots of confidence, you have to have like a straight vision. So you better get on board with creators that have like a unique take on the world. Yeah.
And that's also interesting because if you're working on a project for 12 years and his first feature ends up being what it is, that means he sort of like leapfrogged the process. But it's good for him, for his development, but it's also fascinating that his first project technically should have not been a second project in a way. So I found it fascinating. I was at a masterclass for the Anatomy of a Fall people, And they mentioned that they only felt that they had this powerful film, not at the screenplay stage, but at some juncture during the filming. And having seen the film for a second time yesterday, it was so much fun because I was getting the sense of the crowd, how a lot of people had entry points into this film, different entry points. It speaks to a lot of people in different ways. And there's something universal about universal language. I want to get a sense of you as the producer. When you're on set on like crazy frigid locations, you don't necessarily have access to how it might play for the grand public. But at what point did you know during that 12-year process that you had something that was really special and that could go outside of Matthew's crazy little mind?
I have to say, yeah, that's a good question. Like again, there's hopes, there's doubts, but you're right. There comes a time when things sort of get real, and you get a like more concrete sense of what is the film. You know, what's the film's identity. Mm-hmm. And well, first of all, like I said, there was a big step after pandemic. And it actually came also when Matthew premiered his, Matthew premiered his first feature in Berlin 2020.
Yeah.
Just before pandemic. And it was like an amazing film. And that also gave me like lots of confidence. I thought to myself like, okay, this guy is really like, he got a step, stronger.
Yeah.
For the next film, we have to go all in, even more. That's what I thought, And then things were put on pause for pandemic, but it got ourselves time to sort of. It was the perfect time to just go back to the script, and that's when Ela, got in.
Mm-hmm.
He was already in
the mix,
screenwriting processes.
Yes. Yes.
And so we had more time to sort of like sit down and everything, and the more we were bouncing back ideas, and the more like it became crazy and funny. And I got a sense at that time, I would say towards the end of screenwriting, process, and then you submit to those different funds, and you see that the public investors, they're all in too, and you're like, whoa, okay, so this feeling sort of grow up. But to be honest, it's really when we shot the film that I was like, okay, wow, we're getting somewhere.
Yes.
And it's like the choices are being made, and they're original, they're bold, they're like, and also the team was so in tune with, each and everyone's mind was in tune with the film. And that was something really beautiful. And it's not, I've done like 25 plus feature films, and I try to bring in this sort of energy. It's not only because of me, but as a producer, and really it's the producer and the director, sort of a combo that sets the tone, of the film crew's energy. And the energy has a lot to do in the end with the final result, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, the way we're handling things, the way we're doing your days, it was a low budget, but never we felt any stress. Never we felt there was lack of time. Never, everybody was happy. It was just like, yeah, I really, I thought, okay. And then seeing the rushes, I was like, whoa. I mean, those small details, when you confirm the costumes, when...
It all adds up. There's all these signs of brilliance.
Yes.
And when I'm thinking actively of this film, I'm thinking of his first feature, and I'm thinking about the team concept, about community. Yeah. Like, I could see it in the art direction, costumes, all the props that were made in 20th century. I'm like, he gave a latitude to his collaborators to bring their A game. Yep. And so I was making that parallel. I'm like, no wonder this film really resonates and really feels as if there's so much uniqueness and authenticity and originality in every single sequence. I mean, you can blink your eye and miss out on a little, I don't know, a propaganda billboard in the back, but everything is so methodical and thought out. And I think that's what I felt with this film, or what was confirmed with this film, is that I see that brilliance. There's a lot of intelligence by being able to bring other people on board and having them elevate their skill set. So for the past 2 decades, you've been in this business for over 2 decades, and producing since 2003. Denis Côté, Maxime Giroux, Monia Chokri, Charlotte Lebon's feature debut recently, Xavier Dolan, and finally this long-standing partnership with Anémon. I wanted to get a sense of you. There's a lot of moments where you say yes to a filmmaker. There's a lot of moments where you say yes to the human being, but ultimately there's moments where you as a producer will pass on a project. It's not a good fit for whatever reason. I want to get a sense of you as a human being, but also professional and producer, what that looks like, how does that feel like? Because there's a little bit of rejection in that, but it's tough love as well. So how does that look like when you have to skip a project with a filmmaker that you admire, that you want to promote, that you want to back, and say, this is not for me, this is not for Meta Films? How does that look like?
Well, it looks like I would say a conversation, like a very friendly conversation, a very, I would say, compassionate conversation. It's never easy to say no to someone, but you have to do it in a way that it's not a total no. It's just like, hey, and really that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's really about the context. Mm-hmm. Like if I was able to do like, I don't know, like 10 films a year, well, maybe I would do 10 films a year, but the system is made in such a way that it's just not possible. And over the years also I've had my own problems where, you know, the typical things, you know, like burnouts, you know, being overwhelmed all the time, this feeling of never having the time even to live, and like you work 7 days a week, and that just doesn't make sense, you know. It's okay, I mean, I did it in the beginning, that's fine. I mean, I did it until even recently, but I'm older now and hopefully wiser, and I try to also like take care of my personal life. Mm-hmm. And that includes saying no to some exciting projects sometimes, because we have to be specific and to choose only a few, just because we're human beings, and there's no point in like being overworked and stuff. And I want to have like a clear mind. I want to be fully present for a project. That's really important. So yeah, and also I would have to say that it just doesn't work. The system is not made for production companies to develop and finance like 4 films per year. It's 1 or 2 tops, you know. So we calculate, okay, this is the amount of projects we have, and how many are we going to make, and then we place our bets. Obviously, I'm an artist for sure, and that will always be like my first sort of drive to select the project is really the artistic connection. But then also we're having a company, and it's a business, so it has to be sustainable. Mm-hmm. You don't really make money out of cinema, but you can survive out of it. That's what we managed to find in the past year. This sort of like balance between the right amount of work, the right amount of project, and also like keeping those it's also a balance between having new filmmakers projects. Yeah. But also like keeping the family intact, creative relationships that we already have with some directors, the ones you mentioned. So it's always a balance, and you can always, and that is sometimes very hard for us producers, because you can be excited for a project, but there's just no room for it. So yeah, and with time it makes things easier, because now Metafilm is well known, and we get you know, when we speak to different people around the planet cinema, they hear us. You know, they say, okay, yeah, they know the name, so we get to choose more. People, I'll have random conversations on the film festival circuit, and people are very much aware of you. They want to work with you, and they're in different countries, and not just only French countries, but you know, other linguistic tongues. I guess we could cap off with 2 questions. So looking back at your filmography, I was wondering if there was a film that you know, you always can get a sense of what it is to you, but
when it's pushed out there, put into the stratosphere, the universe, the film festival circuit, is there one film that you were surprised by the overwhelming love, either critically or just like championed by the film festival circuit? Is there one film where you said, oh yeah, I kind of got a good feeling about it, but then it's so out of your hands and the expectations were triple what you anticipate? Is there one that comes to mind?
One?
Or maybe one or two?
I mean, a few. But I think it's only because I sort of like try to have my expectations very low.
Which is sane,
because
very smart.
I've lived the opposite, where I had like high expectations and it just like turned out good, but not that good. So, and then, you know, it's not a good feeling to be disappointed. So over the years, you just sort of like
have a moderate
down. But I mean, Mommy was obviously I mean, I knew the film would make its way, but to that extent, I was like crazy.
It was a real moment.
It's crazy. It was crazy. I mean, I could say the same with recent films we did. Let's say with Monia or Charlotte or this film. Matthew's film. It's just like almost every day there's a new award. I'm joking, but
no, you're not joking. It's there's a lot of recognition.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We're like getting close to 100 festivals. You know, it's like in 6 months with 15 something, 20 awards, something like that. You know, and the critics are like raving. I have to say, with Matthew's film, it's the first time in all my career that we get amazing reviews from the US and the trades. You know, this is a big difference. That's the only time where we hired an American PR in Cannes. And that's connected to the fact that we had pre-sold the film to a US distributor.
Oscilloscope.
On script.
Yeah.
Because they bought,
wow,
you know, 20th Century, and they became fans.
Yes.
Of Matthew's films.
Yes.
And in their minds, I think they said to themselves, like, okay, we're just going to buy all of this guy's films, and we're going to create like a box set later on for collecting.
Yeah.
They want to follow Matthew. You know, so I managed to pre-sell the US to them on script. That's why I'm saying.
And for that company, it's a big deal for that company, because they don't do that.
They don't do that.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
So
but it was a game changer, because with their expertise, we had amazing, you know, PRs, US PRs.
Yes.
At Cannes, and also we were lucky enough to have, like, I think the best date of the director's fortnight section. They put us on Saturday night at 7 p.m. prime time. If there's one spot in the, you know, in the
that you want, yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And so it attracted a lot of attention. It sends a message. Also, the different sections in Cannes, they place their best films.
Yeah.
And so it sends a message to the journalists. It's like, hey, this in my section. This is the film I really found.
Yeah.
That plus the American PRs made it such a way that we got covered by all the trades, which had never happened, even with let's say Xavier.
Yeah.
And with Xavier, like the press, let's say for example, the French press was amazing. I mean, all the press. But there was always those US journalists that really didn't connect to Xavier's films. Not all of them, of course, but there was some, you know, some shades a little there. But in this film, nothing. It was just like, they were all raving about the film. So I think we came in strong then for all kinds of other purposes, whether it's the Oscar entry for Canada, other film festivals, you know, it has an influence. So those small details, but to be honest, yeah, I'm really impressed with what's happening now with Matthew's film. It's just like...
You can't buy that. You can't buy that. The stars aligned.
It's just like coming in.
Great. That's a good attitude. I'll leave with one question, because I think you're at a very interesting juncture in your career, is that you're touching docu-film, which is a whole other beast. It's a whole financing structure. It's another accompaniment of directors and original voices, but it's a different beast altogether. So I just wanted to get a sense of the importance of including this in your future work. You're working on one now. You were at the Oscars with Rojek last year as well. So talk to me about the importance for you as a creative person, but also as As a person of this world, the importance of docufilm.
Yeah. Documentaries are an amazing space for freedom of style, freedom of choices, you know, and they're very also, how can I say this? They come with a very a higher purpose, I would say, in terms of responsibility.
Yes, yes.
In terms of how to communicate, you know, in terms of morals, you know, ethics.
Yeah.
So, but when you answer all of this and you blend all of this, it becomes, and I'm talking about, you know, docu that can, you know, touch with fiction and stuff, like where the lines of
are blurred.
Yeah. You know? And this is really what something that interests me. You know, the ever-going evolution of the language of cinema. This is something that is that I'm passionate about. I'm also passionate about like how it resonates to the people and how we can connect with the people using those sort of like new recipes of languages, and how we can create sort of like a broader vision of maybe something maybe smaller, or this fascinates me. That's the magic of cinema, right? And I think a lot of filmmakers are brilliant minds, whether their language whether the tools that they use mostly in their language is like coming from documentary or fiction, or like Denis Coté blending them all together and sort of like blurring the lines. This is all good, as long, again, it's going to be the same thing. I would like to put myself only with like, you know, brilliant minds, people that have not necessarily something to say, but a new way of saying something, you know. And so, and for example, you know, Zaine, why I was attracted to her work is not because necessarily the subject, but more like, okay, the crafting, the mastering, that's what interests me. And then I'm drawn to these people and we have conversations, and if it's just like, it's not a plan, you know what I mean? It comes naturally.
I hear you,
like, if there's a creative connection, then we just move forward and like, okay, how do we do this, you know? And could have been fiction, could have been doc. It's just like it's equal. There's no.
I hear you.
One is not better than the other one.
I hear you.
It's just like it's just a different way to connect to an audience. It's a different set of tools for language. Yeah.
Congratulations on bringing and promoting Quebecois, Canadian cinema to an international level stage, and hedging your bets on voices that I didn't know I wanted to hear, and just collecting a whole bunch of cool cats for us to enjoy. So
I'll keep serving you guys for
the
pleasures of your eyes and your ears.
Thank you so much, Sylvain. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Merci. It's Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.